The dust off the stagecoach clung to Maybelle Carter's boots as if the earth itself didn't want to let go of her. She stepped down slowly, her hands shaking just enough to betray the calm she wore like a veil. The dry wind bit at her cheeks, and behind her, her daughter Rose climbed down with both hands clutching her mother's worn skirts. The girl said nothing, but her eyes flicked everywhere, wide, solemn, too knowing for 8 years old. Maybelle adjusted the shawl around her shoulders and raised her chin. In the distance, the ranch stood like a promise and a threat. Flatland stretched on for miles, broken only by the creaking windmill and a crooked fence that leaned as though weary from years of fighting back the wild. A man waited by the corral gate, arms crossed. He didn't move as they approached, not until they were close enough to see the faint scar that slashed across his left eyebrow. His boots were caked with dirt. His coat hung heavy from the dust of old regrets. "You're the cook?" he asked. "I am," Maybelle lied, voice steady. He looked at her. No blink, no nod, just a long, deliberate study. Then his gaze shifted to Rose, who stared up at him like she was memorizing his face. He knelt down, eye level with the child. "And you are?" "I'm Rose," she said, clear as a bell. "I can sweep and peel potatoes." A flicker crossed his face, amusement maybe. Something softened for half a second. "I'm Elias McCade," he said, standing again. "This place is called Hollow Creek Ranch. Welcome to it." Maybelle nodded and followed as he turned. Her eyes swept across the land. A stable, half full, a smokehouse sun-bleached and dented, a farmhouse with paint peeling off like dead skin. But it was land. Work. Safety for now. Inside the farmhouse, Elias opened the door with a grunt and gestured inside. "Kitchen's through there. You and the girl can sleep in the loft for now." She entered and took it in quickly. Wood floors, a cast-iron stove, shelves lined with canned goods and tools. She knew how to survive. She just didn't know how to cook like she said she did. But that hadn't stopped her from lying. Rose ran a hand along the table's edge, whispering, "It smells like wood and smoke." Maybelle gave her daughter a tight smile. "That means it's warm." That night, she tried to cook. The beans burned. The biscuits collapsed. She oversalted the stew. She spilled the coffee. Elias didn't say a word. He ate it, slow and deliberate, each bite a kind of quiet penance. When he was done, he wiped his mouth with a napkin, stood, and said only, "There's more feed in the barn. I'll be back before sunup." He left. The door clicked shut behind him. Maybelle collapsed into the chair like someone shot her. She pressed her palms into her eyes, breath trembling in her throat. Rose slid into her lap and tucked her head against her mother's chest. "You said you knew how," the girl murmured. "I did," Maybelle replied. "I knew how to get us in the door." They cleaned the dishes in silence. Water sloshed in the basin, and Rose dried everything with care, her small hands precise. It was nearly midnight when Maybelle climbed the ladder to the loft and wrapped herself around her daughter, staring out the small window at the stars that glimmered like tiny judgments overhead. She thought of her late husband, David, how he used to whistle while shaving, how he'd call her Miss Sunshine even when the world felt like mud. He'd gone to work one day in a Nevada mine and never come back. Just a body, just a debt, just a man who meant well and died too young. The bank had taken everything. Friends disappeared like smoke. She'd run, first from grief, then from the law, then from hunger. And now here she was on a stranger's ranch, praying the lie wouldn't get her killed. In the morning, she rose early, determined. She read through Elias's pantry like it was a mystery novel and started again, slower, more careful. This time, the biscuits at least stayed intact, if dry as the desert wind. She fried eggs in bacon grease and watched Elias take a bite. He chewed, then grunted. "Better. Won't burn your tongue today," she offered, cautious. "I've eaten worse." She didn't ask when. She could guess. A man like him had probably survived more than he let on. By noon, Maybelle was sweeping the front porch while Rose played with a stray barn cat. Elias rode back in from the south fields, leading a lame horse. His shirt was dust-streaked, his brow glistening with sweat. He tied the reins, patted the horse's neck, then glanced up at her. You handle a rifle? She shook her head. I can learn. You'll need to. Her stomach nodded. Is there trouble? There's always trouble, he said, then turned back to the animal. Later, in the barn, she watched him work. How his hands moved with precision and care, how the animals seemed to trust him. He moved like someone who didn't waste words or steps. Rose crept into the stall beside her and whispered, Do you think he likes us? I think he's tolerating us, Maybelle replied. That's a start. That night, dinner was edible, almost good. She'd made cornbread, and it didn't crumble like ash. Elias even poured himself a second cup of coffee. Rose talked more at the table, about a dream she'd had, about a butterfly that landed on her sleeve. Elias listened, nodding now and then, occasionally smiling with the corner of his mouth. It wasn't much, but it felt like something. When dinner ended, Maybelle began to collect the plates. Elias stood and moved to the door. Just as he reached it, he paused. He didn't turn, but his voice cut through the quiet. I didn't hire you because you could cook, he said. Maybelle froze. Her fingers clenched the rim of a plate, so hard it nearly cracked. I hired you, Elias continued, because a ranch this big isn't meant to be this quiet. I hired you because I saw that girl's eyes, because I got tired of walking through silence. He opened the door. The cold night swept in like an accusation. I hired you, he finished, because I didn't want to cook. I wanted love and family. Then he left. The wind slammed the door behind him. Maybelle stood motionless. Rose looked up from the cat she was petting on the floor. What did he mean? Maybelle couldn't speak. Her mouth was dry, her chest a storm. She knew what he meant. He saw them, not just as two mouths to feed or bodies to house, but as the missing piece in something he no longer believed he deserved. And that terrified her more than anything else, because the lie had worked. But now she didn't want to lie anymore. Still, lies had a way of turning to stone once spoken. She didn't know if she could find her way back to truth, or if there was still a path to it at all. Upstairs, the wind howled against the loft window. Maybelle lay beside Rose, wide-eyed, unable to sleep. Her daughter's breathing evened into sleep's rhythm, but Maybelle's thoughts raced. She had come to Hollow Creek with nothing but desperation, a cracked voice rehearsing recipes she'd only read about, and the hope that a man too far from town wouldn't know the difference. But Elias McCade wasn't a fool. He hadn't been fooled at all, and that somehow made the lie feel heavier. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew this. They were no longer invisible, and that was dangerous for the heart, for survival. But maybe, just maybe, it was the first step toward something real. The sun cracked open the sky with a hot gold glare. Maybelle squinted as she hauled a bucket of water up from the well, her arms sore, her dress damp with sweat. Rose sat nearby under the shade of the sycamore, mending a tear in her doll's arm with thread and a stick pin. It was quiet save for the wind and the occasional rustle of Elias's horses down in the corral. A peaceful morning, but still too still. Maybelle had grown used to the rhythm of life on Hollow Creek Ranch. Wake with the sun, cook something edible, tend to chores, keep out of Elias's way. Except now, he didn't seem to want her out of his way. He spoke more, stayed longer at meals. Not much, just a nod, a question, a story about a storm he rode through once. But it was enough to make her nervous. He was watching her, not with suspicion, with something else. She wasn't sure she could handle being seen. Inside the kitchen, she stirred beans on the stove, careful this time to keep them from sticking. She added cumin because it smelled like something that made sense. She was starting to think she might pull off this lie a little longer, until the sound of hooves thundered toward the house like a breaking wave. Elias burst through the back door, eyes sharp, voice like gravel. Take the girl. Hide. Her hand flew to her chest. What? Bandits, he barked. 3 of them. I spotted them near the creek. They've seen the smoke from the chimney. She didn't argue. She grabbed Rose, dragged her into the root cellar, and shut the hatch just before a shot rang out across the yard. Rose trembled beside her. Mama. Shh, baby, she whispered, heart pounding. We're okay. We're okay. Dust sifted down through the floorboards above as boots thudded across the porch. She counted every step. Each one sounded like a countdown to something permanent. From outside came voices, men shouting, the low drawl of confrontation. Then the sharp crack of a gunshot. Maybelle pressed Rose against her chest, teeth clenched. A second shot. Then a third, louder, closer. Silence. She waited. And waited. The cellar door finally creaked open. Elias's face appeared in the light, streaked with blood, not his. He held a rifle low in one hand, his jaw tight. "You're all right," he said. "It's done." Maybelle climbed up slowly, pulling Rose with her. She scanned the horizon. 2 horses were galloping off into the scrub. One man lay slumped against the fence post, unmoving. "I scared the rest off," Elias muttered. "They won't be back soon." She looked at him then, not just at the blood or the rifle, but at the man. Calm, steady, unshaken. "You saved us," she said. He looked down at his boots, like the compliment embarrassed him. "Wouldn't be much of a man if I didn't." Inside, she washed his hands. He'd taken a scratch across his knuckles, nothing deep, but she cleaned it anyway. The silence between them changed, thicker now, full of what had not yet been said. "You've done this before," she murmured. "I've done a lot before." "Do you always fight for people you don't really know?" He looked at her then. Something vulnerable flickered behind his eyes. "You think I don't know you?" "I know enough." She wanted to ask what he meant. Instead, she said, "Thank you." He nodded once. "You handled yourself well." "I hid," she said bitterly. "You kept the girl alive. That's what matters." That night, Elias sat longer than usual at the table. Rose talked about the cat again, but eventually excused herself to bed, too tired to fight the yawn pulling at her eyes. Elias stayed behind, swirling whiskey in a chip glass. Maybelle leaned against the doorframe. "She doesn't remember her father's face anymore," she said quietly. "Sometimes I don't either." He looked at her, patient. "We were married when I was 17. He was sweet. Thought he'd give us the world." She gave a bitter smile. "He died trying to dig it out of the ground. Mine died trying to put it back together." She waited, not wanting to interrupt the rare moment of honesty. "My wife," he continued, voice low. "Name was Lillian. She wanted kids more than anything. We tried. Lost 2. Then she got pregnant again." His throat worked hard to get the next words out. "She and the baby both died birthing." Maybelle swallowed hard. "I buried her under the cottonwood," he said. "Out back." The silence returned, thick as smoke. "I can't have children," he added, almost like a confession. "Doctor said the rest died with her." Her breath caught. "I didn't bring you here because of your cooking," he said. "I brought you here because I saw a little girl who needed safety, and a woman who was fighting like hell to give it to her. You don't even know me." "I know enough," he repeated. She turned away, blinking fast. "I didn't want you to know anything. I know that too." The next few days passed in strange peace. Elias checked the fences, rode the perimeter, but no more trouble came. Maybelle spent more time outside. She watched the sky more, the way it darkened just before sunset, like someone drawing the curtain closed. The way Rose laughed more often. The way Elias watched them both when he thought they would notice. He wasn't pressing for the truth, but she could feel it stretching inside her like a splinter working toward the surface. On the 5th morning after the attack, a letter came, delivered by a writer, addressed in blocky script. Maybelle took it to the porch to read in privacy. She broke the seal. "Maybelle, asterisk, I know where you are. I'm coming for the girl. She's mine by blood now. Best not fight it. I'll be there by month's end. Asterisk. Silas." The name stopped her breath. Silas Carter. David's brother. A cruel man with a twisted sense of legacy. He'd been circling ever since David died, claiming Rose had inheritance rights through him. Land, money, whatever scraps remained. But it wasn't about family. It was control. Ownership. She folded the letter with trembling fingers and shoved it into her apron pocket just as Elias stepped outside. "Bad news." "Old news," she said tightly. "Looks like new ink to me." She looked at him, the lie already forming on her tongue, but she stopped. He's coming, she admitted. My husband's brother. He wants Rose. Elias's face hardened. He can't have her. He might try the courts. He'll have to go through me first. She blinked. Why would you do that? His voice was low, rough. Because you're not the only one who's lost something. And maybe I'm tired of letting things be taken from me. She stepped back, heart pounding. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. You've got nothing to gain from this. I've got everything to gain. His hand hovered like he wanted to reach for her, then fell. I won't let him take her. Or you. She didn't trust it. Couldn't. Trust had cost her too much. But still, something inside her cracked open, just a little, just enough to breathe. That night, as she lay in the loft beside Rose, she stared at the rafters and whispered into the dark. He says he wants to protect us, she murmured. Rose shifted in her sleep. Like Papa? She blinked hard, swallowing the lump in her throat. Maybe better, she said softly. Maybe he wants to stay. Outside, the night was still. But inside her, something stirred. Fear, yes, but something else too. Hope. The kind that didn't come from lies, but from being seen. And chosen anyway. The letter burned a hole in Maybelle's pocket for days. Every time she looked at Rose, carefree and golden in the late afternoon light, she felt it smoldering hotter, proof of what was coming. Silas. That name alone dredged up years of fear she thought she'd buried under grit and survival. He had always been different from David. While her husband was gentle, full of dreams and kindness, Silas was the opposite, hard, possessive, and brutal. He didn't care about Rose. He cared about what she represented, a chance to claim land and blood, to own something, someone. When David died, Silas hadn't brought condolences. He brought threats dressed up as legal claims. He wanted the land David had left his daughter, and now that Maybelle had run, he had every excuse to say she was unfit. She tried to cook through her nerves. It helped. Mixing cornmeal, slicing potatoes, folding biscuits with trembling hands. Rose played in the dirt outside, her laughter too loud for the heaviness thickening in Maybelle's chest. Every sound made her flinch. Every shadow near the road twisted her stomach. On the third evening after the letter, Elias found her behind the barn, her hands shaking as she chopped wood with a dull hatchet. He said nothing at first, just leaned on the fence post and watched. He's not just some angry relative, she finally said. He's dangerous. I figured as much. She paused, hatchet hovering in midair. You think I should run? I think you've done enough running. She turned to him. If he takes her, if he even sees her, I don't know what I'll do. Then we won't let him get close. You say that like you've already decided. I have. Her lips parted, then closed again. The words stuck somewhere between her chest and her throat. He pushed off the post and walked toward her. You want me to help? Let me. You want to face this alone? I won't stop you. But you shouldn't have to. Not anymore. She gripped the hatchet tighter, needing something solid in her hand. I lied to you. I know. I lied about why I came here, what I could do. I brought danger to your doorstep. He didn't flinch. You brought life back to it, too. She shook her head. You don't know what it means to lose everything. He stepped closer. You think I don't carry ghosts? She met his eyes then, saw the pain he didn't parade around, saw how it lived in the silence between his words, in the way he set the table for three even before she arrived, in the way he looked at Rose like she was already his to protect. She exhaled slowly. If I let you help, I need to tell you the rest. I'm listening. So she told him. Everything. How David had worked a mine owned by Silas's friends, how he died under a collapsed shaft they never bothered to fix, how Silas used that death to try and take what little land was left, citing family ties, how he called Rose his rightful blood, and how the town lawyer, drunk most days, nearly handed over guardianship when she wouldn't remarry. Elias didn't interrupt. He just listened, jaw clenched, fists in his pockets. He followed us for months, she said. I thought we'd lost him. Thought maybe the desert had been enough to hide us. But he found us again. Elias nodded once. Then we'll make sure this is where he loses you. Later that night, while Rose slept, Elias drew out an old map of the land and pointed to places where the fence was weakest. "He'll come from the north," he said. "There's no cover from the ridge. If I wait there, I'll see him coming. You planning to shoot him?" "I'm planning to make sure he doesn't get past the gate." She hesitated. "What if he brings a sheriff? Or papers? Then we counter them. I've got friends who know the law better than he does. I'm not sure anything can stop him once he sees her." Elias's voice dropped, firm. "Then he'll be looking through a rifle scope." Maybelle stared at him. He meant it, every word. The next morning, the mood at Hollow Creek shifted. She felt it in the quiet urgency of how Elias checked the fence lines, in the way he spoke less and scanned the horizon more. Maybelle worked like a woman trying to outrun the clock, cleaning, baking, teaching Rose how to braid, kindling into fire starters, anything to keep her hands busy. That evening, while the sky bled orange and violet, Elias approached her with a small package. "It's a dress," he said. "For Rose." She blinked. "Why?" "If he sees her, he'll see a girl who's cared for, clean, loved. We make it impossible for him to prove otherwise." Her throat tightened. "You think it'll work?" "I think we use every tool we've got." She opened the package after he left. Inside was a cotton dress with small red flowers sewn along the hem. Simple, sturdy, perfect. That night, she found Elias outside near the corral, bottle in hand, watching the stars like they owed him something. "Do you ever wish things had been different?" she asked. "All the time." "Would you have married again?" He didn't answer for a long time. Then, "Only if I thought it was real. Only if I thought she wouldn't leave." Maybelle stepped closer, her breath catching in the cooling air. What if she'd been running most of her life? He looked at her then, slow and deliberate. Then, maybe she finally found a place to stop. They stood like that, close but not touching, the air thick between them. Then he leaned in, slow, cautious. She didn't move. His lips brushed hers, soft and certain. She kissed him back, not out of desperation or fear, but something quieter, longing, maybe, or the realization that trust was finally louder than doubt. When they parted, he rested his forehead against hers. "I'll protect you," he said. The next morning, the storm arrived. Maybelle spotted the dust trail before Elias did, rising in the north like smoke. A rider. No, two. Then a third. One wagon behind them. The shape of legal confrontation. She ran to the porch. Elias met her halfway, rifle slung across his shoulder. "That him?" he asked. She nodded. Her mouth had gone dry. "Go inside," he said. "Get Rose ready." Maybelle grabbed her daughter and dressed her in the flowered cotton dress, brushing her hair into two braids. Her hands shook so badly she could barely tie the ribbons. Rose didn't ask what was happening. She just looked at her mother and knew. Outside, the horses slowed. Silas dismounted with a smirk stretched across his leathery face. He was taller than she remembered, or maybe the years had just turned him into something harder. A man stepped beside him in a dusty badge, sheriff, or someone pretending to be one. "Nice spread," Silas called, eyes scanning the yard like a man already measuring it for sale. Elias didn't flinch. "State your business." "I've come for the girl." "She's not yours." Silas held up a folded paper. "According to the law, she's got Carter blood, and that means she's mine to raise." Maybelle stepped onto the porch, Rose clutching her skirt. Silas's eyes narrowed. "Long time, Belle. You don't speak to me." He grinned, teeth yellow. "I'm taking what's mine." Elias took one step forward. "You're not taking anything." The man with the badge started to speak, but Maybelle cut him off. "I have guardianship documentation signed by David Carter before his death. Filed in Nevada. That makes me sole custodian. You try to take her, and you're kidnapping her." Silas laughed. "You think that'll hold up out here?" "I've got friends," Elias said, "in the judge's office. You won't last 2 miles before you're in chains." The sheriff hesitated. Silas turned to him. "You with me, or not?" The man held up his hands and backed away. "This wasn't what I signed up for." Silas's expression darkened. "You can't hide behind him forever." Elias leveled the rifle. "No, but I can end this right now if I have to." Silas studied them both. Then his eyes landed on Rose. His smirk faded. She looks like her father, he muttered. She looks like herself, Maybelle snapped. Silas spat in the dirt, then mounted his horse. This ain't over. As he rode off, Maybelle sank to the ground, arms around her daughter, tears hot and fast down her cheeks. Elias knelt beside them, hand on her back. He's gone, he whispered. For now, she said. But in her chest, where panic used to live, something else had taken root. Determination. She wasn't running this time. Not ever again. The quiet didn't last. 3 days after Silas left with his hollow threats, the morning broke heavy and strange. The wind carried a wrongness with it, pressing low to the ground, like it was trying to whisper something ugly before it arrived. The air was thick with the promise of conflict. Elias felt it in his bones first. He rode the north line early, eyes sharp, heart uneasy. The tracks he found weren't fresh, but they weren't old either. Circles in the dirt where hooves had turned, waited doubled back. Watching maybe, measuring. When he returned to the house, Maybelle was on the porch, Rose curled in a rocking chair beside her, reading a Bible that wasn't theirs. The child read aloud in a slow, careful voice. Maybelle looked up when Elias dismounted. She didn't ask. She knew. He tied his horse, wiped sweat from his brow, and said he's coming back. She nodded. Alone? No. He'll bring someone. Or something worse. They didn't speak after that. No plans this time. No talk of strategies or legal papers. Just a steady silence as Maybelle gathered Rose and moved her things into the crawl space beneath the floorboards. If it came to it, the girl would hide. If it came to it, Maybelle would fight. By sundown, the horizon held shapes. 5 riders this time, a wagon trailing behind them. Not lawmen, too sloppy. And not random thieves. These men moved with a purpose. Silas rode at the front, tall in the saddle, eyes shaded by a wide-brimmed hat. Rose watched from the loft window. Her voice was very small. Is he here for me? Maybelle brushed a hand over her hair, held her close. He's here for something he can have. They heard the hoofbeats grow louder, the crunch of gravel under wheels. The sun cast long shadows across the yard, turning everything gold and black. Elias stood by the gate, rifle ready, jaw locked. The riders stopped 10 yards from a house. Silas didn't dismount. He tipped his hat back and smiled like a man greeting an old friend he planned to rob. You should have handed her over when I asked polite, he said. You wouldn't know polite if it kicked your teeth in, Elias replied. One of the men beside Silas, a skinny one with a scar across his cheek, laughed. Is that a threat? It's a promise, Elias said. Silas's smile faded. You don't have the right to keep her. She's not yours to take. I've got a signed judge's order. New this time. Found a friend willing to listen. Maybelle stepped out onto the porch, her voice sharp. What you've got is forged and worthless. I have papers filed in 3 counties. Silas ignored her. Girl's got Carter blood. That's all that matters. I don't care what she's wearing or who's feeding her. She's mine by blood, and I aim to have her. Rose peeked out behind the curtain upstairs. Silas noticed. His eyes lit up greedy and ugly. Elias saw the look. That was enough. He raised the rifle. I'm only going to say this once, he said, voice flat. Turn around. Go back the way you came. Or you'll leave in pieces. Silas gave a signal. The first shot rang out, kicking up dust near Elias's boot. He didn't flinch. He fired once, clean and fast. The man who'd laughed earlier dropped from his horse with a scream, clutching his leg. The yard erupted. Elias moved fast, taking cover behind the water trough. Maybelle darted back inside, shoved Rose into the hiding place beneath the floor, and whispered fierce, "Don't move." She grabbed the revolver Elias had left in the pantry. It felt heavy in her hand, but her grip was steady. Glass shattered behind her as a bullet tore through the kitchen window. She ducked low, crawled through to the front room, heart hammering. Outside, the gunfire paused. Then footsteps, heavy ones, approaching. The door creaked open. Silas stood there, pistol drawn, eyes wild with triumph. Told you this wasn't over. Maybelle didn't answer. She waited. He stepped fully into the room, boots on her rug, gun sweeping the space. Where's the girl? Gone, she said. Don't lie to me. Funny, she snapped, coming from a man who built his whole life on lies. He crossed the room in 2 strides, grabbed her wrist, twisted it hard until the revolver clattered to the floor. She gasped in pain but didn't scream. You think that cowboy outside can stop me? He's bleeding in the dirt by now. She smiled, teeth clenched. Then why are you shaking? He was. She drove her knee into his thigh, shoved him back, and dove for the revolver. He caught her by the hair, dragged her upright. And then Elias was there. Blood streaked his shirt, a graze across his ribs, but his aim was true. His voice cut through the tension like a whip. Let her go, Silas. Silas froze, gun pressed against Maybelle's side. You're bleeding out, McCade. Not fast enough to miss a target this close. They stared at each other. No one moved. Even the house seemed to hold its breath. Then from under the floorboards, a soft voice. Mama? Silas lunged. Elias fired. The shot echoed through the house like a thunderclap. Silas stumbled, eyes wide, hand loosening from Maybelle's arm. Blood blossomed on his shoulder. He dropped to one knee, breath ragged. You shot me. I warned you, Elias said. Maybelle kicked his pistol away, breathing hard. Outside, the other men had already fled. Cowards, mostly. Guns for hire, not believers in this foolish mission. Elias sagged against the doorframe, wincing. Maybelle ran to him, caught his weight. You're hit. Not bad, just ugly. She helped him to the table, pressing a towel against his side. You could have been killed. So could you. But you came anyway. He reached for her hand, his grip warm, firm. I told you. I won't let anyone take what matters from me again. Rose climbed out from the crawlspace, tears streaking her cheeks. She ran to Elias and threw her arms around his waist. You okay, little one? He asked, voice gentler now. She nodded into his coat. Maybelle looked down at Silas. He was still conscious, grimacing. I should let you bleed, she said. But you won't, Elias added. Because you're not like him. They called the sheriff from the next town over. A real one. When he arrived the next morning, he took one look at Silas, the gun, the forged papers, and said, Looks like justice found you before I did. They loaded him into the wagon and took him away. By midday, the ranch was quiet again. Too quiet. Maybelle sat on the porch, a clean cloth in her hands, dabbing gently at Elias's wound. He let her fuss, grumbling just enough to keep his pride intact. You could have died, she said, but I didn't. You scared me. I scare myself sometimes. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I never wanted you involved in this. And I never wanted this place to feel like a tomb. Then you showed up, with your terrible cooking and that child who sees through everything. I'm trying, she whispered. I know. So am I. He looked at her then, really looked. Not just at the tired lines around her eyes or the way her fingers trembled when she stitched a wound, but at the woman who'd lied to survive, who'd stood her ground when it counted, who chose truth when it hurt most. He kissed her. Not gentle this time. Solid. Real. When they parted, she rested her forehead against his. So what now? Now, he said, we build. She laughed softly, surprised at how much joy it held. You sure you want that? Me, the girl, the mess? I've never been more sure of anything. Rose appeared in the doorway, sleepy-eyed, her voice drowsy. Mama, can we make cornbread for supper? Maybelle smiled. Only if you help. Elias leaned back in his chair, exhaled long and low. If you burn it again, I'm eating outside. I'll make extra butter, Maybelle said. They sat in the fading light, the three of them, shadows growing long behind them. For the first time, the silence felt right. Not empty. Full. They hadn't just survived the storm. They'd won.